Welcome to the Digital Exchange. Choosing a digital twin platform isn't a software decision, it's a strategic one. It shapes how your data moves, how your team works, and how your assets perform for decades. But with so many platforms promising everything from real time intelligence to lifecycle integrations, how do owners cut through the noise and make the right call? Today, we're breaking down what actually matters when selecting a digital twin platform, the risk, the trade-off, and the long-term implications that don't show up on a feature sheet. Let's get into it. Thank you for joining me today, man. We've been on a podcast and before together, conferences.
Yeah, I keep throwing your name up there as a guest speaker with me, so I don't think people can get rid of us yet.
Nah, they can't get rid of us yet. So I know who Jacob is, Big Jake, but why don't you tell the people about who you are, who you work for?
Yeah, absolutely. So Jacob Dalbora, Director of Digital Building Operations over at Via Technic. We're a VDC BIM consulting group, been around for I think 14 years now. I joined about 4 years ago, and it was really to kind of help push the owner side of the company. We were strong in MEP and GC, but the BIM FM movement was happening. We were all excited, thinking that owners are going to use BIM and it'll be great, but we actually realized we could get in there and help them a lot with processes, really help them figure out digital transformation. So that's basically what I do, is really help owners with digital transformation, really look at how they're getting data from design and construction and what they're using it for during operations.
See, you
I got that down pat, right?
boy, look here, that was motionless. This was awesome, man. I actually thought I was going to get you on here about assets, and then I was like, no, I can get you on here for a number of things, but the one thing I wanted to get you on is something that a lot of owners are thinking they want to dive into, but they don't understand what a digital twin platform is. There's a lot of them out there, so I'm not really going to say any names per se, but what people need to understand as we dive into the conversation today is you're going to have to make a choice when you select a digital twin platform. And you remember when me and you talked a few months ago and I gave you that sports analogy? You got these Olympic athletes work out 4 years, right? And these guys are working hard for that one moment in time to be that gold medalist. And what that means is they're willing to give up everything for that cause. Well, people think that about digital twins until they start getting into the 10 million, 20 million, start getting into those numbers. I have SaaS costs that's, 500,000 to a million or whatever, some even more than that. And they begin to realize, do I even have a functioning business case?
It's tough. I mean, if you look at other facility platforms, a CMMS system is not costing you that much.
Nope.
And people were relying on that for their facilities to completely work. So why am I going to pay 10x on something to have it just read information from my CMS? Like there's a lot of questions and a lot of, lack of understanding. You like you said, the education still is not fully there for the industry. And there's also problems with products touting to be digital twins when they're not, or trying to sell a different type of service when it's, there's been a certain idea of what digital twins are supposed to accomplish over the past.
So, being we both serve on a committee together, I know you're the lead on it, thank goodness, about digital twins. What do you think most owners think they want out of a digital twin? And what is it you think they normally mean? Like, heck, do they even know?
They don't know. I think if they have an idea, they immediately go to this 3D representation, this idea of like, oh, we're going to be in 3D. And that is definitely a part of it. That's definitely a plus, but it's not the digital twin. A lot of this is the idea of how can we actually tie data sources together. Currently, a CMMS platform doesn't get the data from a BMS platform and vice versa. I talking to an owner 2 weeks ago, and they're like, hey, I get my asset ID in my CMMS, and then I have to go to my BMS, enter the asset ID to then look up the information of the real-time data. And it's like they don't even have the correct asset IDs in the same platforms. It's mind boggling. But if we could connect them, their time savings just finding information goes down, or I guess the savings goes up. And then they're actually able to understand what's going on in their building better. You can tie in sustainability information. You can tie in space information. There's just all these different platforms, and then there's a slew of use cases. But the idea since the beginning, the owners are like, I don't care about 3D. I don't want 3D. And it's mainly because Revit was handed to them for so many years.
Yeah.
And they were like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? And then they're like, you're supposed to go buy a $10,000 computer so you can open up our model and use it. So they got a bad taste in their mouth about the 3D. We have to show them the value props. But once again, we also have to show them that 3D is not the only value prop within a digital twin.
There's a lot of jargon around the industry, single source of truth, silos, they everybody want to throw up these terms, and that I guess that makes them more meaningful, more relevant in the conversation. But what type of misconceptions do we see or we run into on the owner side?
I think the single source of truth is the one that gets me the most. There is no single source of truth. Data is going to live in multiple spaces. Like there is no way you're going to ever get one environment with all the data and be able to pull from it. If you do, you have a very sophisticated team running your facility and everybody's running in the same direction, which doesn't happen anywhere.
That's a sore
Uh,
spot with me
yeah.
because if I know a lot of campuses and places got older facilities, and those guys didn't care about asset management. They didn't care about making sure the asset ID is the same in the full ecosystem. I mean, that's every time we talk, that's a big one with me. And you knew how to push my button today. That is a big one.
It is. And, I think as closer and closer that we get to AI being a part of facility management, we realize that that asset ID has become so important. Really, the idea going back to the single source of truth, they're living in different places, right? The way that everything's been solved to this point has been point solutions between two pieces of software.
Yeah.
And we're going to go build it custom for each owner, and then it breaks and then it doesn't work and it consistently has that problem. But that asset ID is that key, right? That's the key to tying it all together. So if we can get that asset ID correct and get the handover with that correct, it unlocks so much down the line.
There's a lot of data that is out there. There's a lot of older facilities who didn't care about technology, sensory data. There's a lot of things that go into trying to get a building, an older building, up to par. When I was talking last week, I showed a slide that had a new build and then all I put for the new construction was like a tunnel. And one of the guys was like, "What that mean?" I'm like, "New construction is not hard. Start
Mhm.
with the end in mind and go." But when you jump into that scan to BIM and all of these different things where I'm having to build from old plans, get some point cloud data, and I'm trying to build a model. And then when I get all of that and actually have a model, now I got to try to get some information. Which, as me and you begin to talk today, I hope people realize when you're talking, just because you integrate, don't mean that data is organized
Mhm.
because there's a lot of organization that needs to happen. So, what is it you think owners should be preparing for now that they aren't thinking about in order to try to somewhat dive into the digital twin technology?
Get the strategy, find partners. You're going to have contracting partners, engineering partners, but there is actual strategy partners. I mean, Via Technic is one of them, but get the strategy because even with your facilities go through a change management process every year. There's small projects that happen all over the facilities. And that's a way to start grabbing data. That's a way to start collecting it. Get the strategy involved and just start collecting it at least, and it's going to build. That's at least a starting point versus just saying, I have an old building. I don't know how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
You're not sending somebody to crawl through all the ACT tiles to get all the assets.
Yeah.
You use projects as the way to actually do it. And then you can actually start building that data source of correct IDs and actual make manufacturers, where it's located. And then no part of the strategy is going to give you a requirement, a standard of data that should be delivered to you at the end of construction. And so you are collecting data as you do it during construction, and then the contractor should deliver something very clean that helps you start building. But you can't do any of that on your own. You're not going to put it into place. Not everybody has a Robert Brown that understands what we're doing to then go tell the contractor. So engage a consultant that's going to help you put the standard together. If your contractors and designers come back and charge you a obscene amount of money because you now have a standard data deliverable, then you need to start finding some other contractors and stuff too, because it's going to become a standard.
So what type of good data governance? What does it look like to be able to initiate that strategy you're talking about and establish a good data governance program so that you can have a effective digital twin environment?
Yeah. So actually, I'm even working right now with an owner to produce almost the correct process. There's certain rules to the data that you get coming across. I mean, first
Yeah.
off, owners have a manufacturer that they typically go with, or a set of three
Yep.
of them. So you need to make sure, hey, if you're looking at data and I'm looking at my air handlers that are coming through, it's the train, the carrier, and whatever that
Yeah.
is part of it. If it's not one of those three, then you have the wrong data in there. What's really good is there's ways to do that in Excel. There's ways to do that on Smartsheet, but even AI now is really starting to help actually validate data and come
Yes.
back. I actually had the other day is that I used Claude to go through. It recognized what the manufacturer was, went to their pages and made sure that the model number actually started with the correct prefix. And it would immediately alert me if something didn't start with a prefix that was from that manufacturer. And that way, we're starting to actually find correct data going all the way across the table and not just using human validation to do it. So you got to do it that way. Commissioning actually becomes one of the best ways to do it, right?
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
literally have somebody going around your building, checking where it's located, having eyes on the manufacturing panel on the side, and then testing and balancing. It's actually getting real time information of before it starts. All of that needs to be structured correctly and handed over. And that way, your CMMS systems, your BMS systems are populated from the get go.
Well, I can tell you, I know we're on our fifth iteration of standards because guess what? We found as we dive deeper and deeper and deeper into that realm beyond BIM, what I call it. There's a conference that happened where it's big reality capture and stuff like that. And they're calling a lot of things they're do digital twins. And my buddy was like, that's not a digital twin. I said, it may not be a digital twin to you in your definition, but you can't go telling people that's not a digital twin. So that's why I said, man, that realm beyond them that's out there, that as we dive into that, Jay, man, there's a lot of things that's happening, a lot of things that's coming. A lot of people aren't willing to wait that long to let it happen. I was about to ask you what type of day-to-day operations are you thinking digital twins can provide for asset management and field teams, but some people dive into it and don't even let themselves get to that point.
I agree. And I think you stating that you're on your fifth version of standards
Yeah.
is great to hear. It's a journey. There's really not going to be a finish line. And it's made that way because you're going to consistently improve upon everything you're doing. But there has to be a starting point, right? Even though there's not a finish line, you have to start somewhere. So you mentioned the use cases of the digital twin and how people get wrapped up in them. The first and easiest, the quickest to deploy is your O&M side, is using it for maintenance. And your easiest use case is if you have a 3D and the asset data, it's your location. Where is this piece of equipment located? If it's a VAV box, where is it located above the ceiling? Is it located 15 feet above the floor? Because if it's 15 feet, I need a 12-foot ladder, not the 8-foot ladder. And those are things that consistently happen in facility management. Techs are taking the wrong tools to the part, having to walk another 20 minutes back, having to get right tools and go back out there. There's just inefficiencies there. Finding O&M manuals. People still go through and actually look in 3-ring binders to find an O&M manual.
Yes.
You could literally walk out to that piece of equipment and Google the O&M manual in 2 minutes and be able to use your phone. But people still actually take the 45 minutes to dig through a 3-ring binder. These are things that will solve or be solved by a digital twin right off the bat. And that's a great use case. It's a great way to start seeing efficiencies. And it's also good for the techs. Some people might not want them, but there's quite a few that are going to be like, oh man, I'm so glad that I don't have to make that walk all the way back again just to get the other ladder. And that's typically where we want to make the biggest impact. And then from there, drive it up. O&M, you can roll that up to your leadership and start showing, statistics around closing out work orders. You can start showing running life and how equipment is actually performing. Let them kind of dig in and see that, especially if you have a multi-building campus or portfolio. You can start pulling this data together and see how buildings are performing against each other. Um, that's another way to start selling it, the impact to the leadership side and the higher ups. So there's use cases galore. I think Digital Twin Consortium has, I think like 20 some odd departments that have a use case. And then under there, there's several use cases, and that can get really overwhelming for an owner. Go start somewhere and build on it.
Some people, a lot of people, they're willing to dive in, and I'm at least want to do a proof of concept. But a lot of them pick the easiest proof of concept that they can possibly get, and it's always on something that may be newer. And they dive into it and they go, "This worked well." And then they say, "Well, you know what? Let's go ahead and let's dive in. Let's hit some of these other facilities." And guess what? That's where what happens. That's the gut punch.
Yep. That newer one had the nice data. It
Yep.
had the pretty models. It was so easy to implement. And now there's this concept of, oh, this is going to be easy.
Yep.
And it's almost like you should do 2 proof of concepts and do one of that new ones because you do want to see some good results, right? To keep selling it.
Right.
And then one of that really shitty one, but you have to go collect all the information and understand what other parts of the facility are going to need as part of this deployment.
I know a lot of them think that choosing a platform is pretty easy, but once again, you're going to decide, are you going to contract that out or are you going to do that internally? Both has a certain can be problematic at certain times. So, what should contractors, how should they form what they're trying to sell to an owner, knowing that some owners may want, you may let you start it, but we want to move this internal. Some of them, if they got enough money, is just like, hey, I'm just going to let you do it and I'm going to trust that you're doing it. So, what type of advice do you have contractors to get owners to answer what it is they're trying to solve?
Um, so it's really tough because the right people during construction are not involved.
Yep.
You typically still don't have the facilities teams involved in the construction. It's design and construction. And when you ask them what do you need, they just go point to the specs. When if you go ask the facilities guy what he needs, he can show you all the data inside of a system that he needs to populate. And when you do a handover process, that takes them months to populate, and it's awful. I mean, think about going through Excel files and validating data for 3 weeks. It's going to be awful. But
Yep.
for contractors, I think the biggest thing they can do is really get educated on how to deliver data structured and a really nice format. That and really nice format literally could be on a USB drive still and really clear file folders. Everything's labeled well. All the files are labeled in a certain convention. If these aren't things you already have from the owner, create something in house as this is how we do it. Because when you turn that over and they're actually able to either search or go through a file folder system that makes sense, they're going to appreciate it much more than everybody that just throws the junk at them and they basically start from scratch every time they start a new building.
Should contractors suggest a tech stack digital maturity mapping, or should the owner suggest that? Digital maturity, knowing the tech stack or not knowing the tech stack, that can be problematic because you're saying I want a digital 20, you don't even know what you have.
I think there are some contractors that are smart enough to, provide the right thing for the owners, provide the right path forward. I think the problem with it is it's the VDC guys and the contractors that then say, hey, I've used this product for years and you should use this product too. That can't happen. Like the owners have to have something different than what's used in construction. The owners need something that's intuitive and something that they can get to easily, something that has search functions really easy. BIM people are different. They understand what a data tree looks like the back of their hand, and they can go through it all they want. Navisworks, Revit,
Yeah.
Revista,
Yep.
I mean, all of them it's data trees, and we navigate that way. Everybody else in this world gets lost with it. It's a bunch of
Yep.
jargon, bunch of just crap to them. Find something that is intuitive and something that they can actually use really easy. Second, don't throw them into a 3D environment right off the bat. If you give them a tool that they click their site and it opens up in 3D, they're not going to use it. And it's okay. The facility techs, the facility managers, even the directors, they don't know how to navigate 3D. That's okay. If it's something where they're just searching for assets and then are able to go to a 3D that brings them to the asset, that's completely different than them getting lost from the get-go. And we really need to make sure that they don't get lost just opening the building.
What if the owner is hesitant about finding out where their digital maturity is because it may hurt their feeling that they're not far as they think they are? How many people really don't want to open the door to finding that out, to say, I'm actually out of a 10 scale. If I'm at a 3 or 4, me diving into a digital twin to get up to a 6, 7, or 8 is going to be some work. What do you think about owners who are fighting to let that assessment of their digital maturity happen?
I tell them that 75% of the industry is sitting at that 3 and 4. They're not alone. And even the ones that say that they're truly advanced and that you think are doing really well, they still have a lot of holes and they still are just trying to come up with solutions every day. I mean, I've worked for the facilities groups of some of the largest tech companies in the world, most forward thinking companies in the world that are literally changing the way we do work. And their facilities departments are very untechnical. They're at the 3 and 4. They are storing floor plans and 8 different data sources, and none of them are up to date. Don't feel like you're behind. The whole industry is behind. Have somebody come out and do a tech stack discovery for you.
Yeah.
Bring it back, show you the architecture of your tech stack. The best thing you're going to get from that is realize that you have 3 different data sources storing the same thing, and no one is finding the right information.
Got a lot of platforms out there, my brother. What type of common mistakes do you see owners making when they try to select a platform?
I mean, there's always the flashy. There's always the ones that have great marketing, but they might not perform as well. You got to really go through pilots, go through proof of concepts, make them put your data or your models into their program and show it to you. Because even for me, I'm a salesperson, right? I'm a technology geek, but my number one thing in my job right now is to educate and then sell. So I'm a salesperson, but your demo model that you show off is going to be the best model you have. You're going to make it perform the best possible. So if you're an owner and you know this, great. That looked really great. I just had I have a Revit file from a contractor 3 years ago. Can I see my building in here? And if they say no, that's something that's a problem. No, I'm not going to give you a full guaranteed access for you just to go do whatever, but I'll put it in. I'll come back and show it to you and fly you around and look at the assets. I think that's like the first thing you got to be aware of is if it's flashy, it can be good. That's good marketing, but doesn't mean that it's actually a great product. See the product with your actual data and see from there, see what you want to do.
See, those are the type of things that stop people from selling what they're trying to do to and have the C-suite sign off on it. You know what I mean? If you jumping around, and you think the C-suite gonna sign off on it, what do they want to know, man? Why am I spending this money? What are you giving me in return?
That's in all seriousness, that's one of the reasons why I took the chair position for NIBS. In the Digital Twin Integration Committee, we have the one working group that's going to be ROI and perceived value.
Yep.
It is the weakest part of our industry around digital twins right now. And it's not necessarily even selling it from a vendor to an owner standpoint. It's actually internal selling. How does a facility manager sell this to their C-suite? Because we have to give them that firepower to go up and do it. And the way I sell it to a facility manager is completely different than the way I sell it to a C-suite.
Yep.
C-suite is going to be about efficiencies, saving money, and really improving insight into everything you're doing. Facility management is a cost center to every company. They don't make revenue. They just cost money. So you got to kind of show them how this is really improving everything, especially when you do get really big investments in some of these digital twins.
Where have you seen digital twins fail for owners? Is it more on the facility management side, not adapting? What have you seen as more of a failure point?
I think there's definitely some weak points in the whole process. I think one is the technology. The technology wasn't there until probably 2022. There were definitely what we called BIM FM, and it was definitely, hey, we can do BIM FM. None of those programs could run a model online. It just didn't work. And the problem was is CMMS systems and BMS systems went and built a BIM module and said, hey, we can run the model too. That put the bad taste in everybody's mouth. I think the other part of it is the correct implementation and training of the facility teams. If you have a tech that is 5 years from retiring,
Oh boy.
he does not want to use this. This
No.
is not in his workload. He's done it for 45 years one way, and there's no way he's doing this. I have dealt with that over and over again. And actually, those are some of my favorite parts of it is talking with them because they have the knowledge. They know everything, and it's fantastic to talk with them. You have to find a way to know what their workflow is and then show them their workflow using the digital twin. If they're going to an Excel sheet to find that, asset every single day and it's just what they've always done, show them how they can find the table in the digital twin the same way, but then it's enhanced. Hey, we can jump to reality capture. We can jump to, the performance of this, and it's all right here. You're not changing their process, because if you come in and ask them to change their process, they're not picking it up. You got to learn how to adapt and make sure they understand how to use your product in the same way they're using other products.
Are those failure points where a lot of people can't get it across the bridge to their C-suite?
Maybe. I
Yeah.
think it's also an understanding of what facility management is.
Yep.
There was, I think the reason that the term BIM FM failed was nobody understood what facility management really wanted. They just pushed construction technology into
Yep.
facility management. And if you go sit with them and learn, like compliance is one of the biggest parts of facility management. And in reality, I hear it as one of the littlest parts of digital twins being talked about, like compliance for healthcare, compliance for airports, and compliance with FDA for manufacturing. There are so many rules that have to be followed. And that means if they don't follow them, they're shut down. So how can we make the digital twin better so they don't have to worry about the compliance guy coming out and inspecting his facility and being, in violation? Let's make sure that that's one of the first things, because I think you sell that to the C-suite. Hey, inspector's going to come out this week and he's going to be blown away. He's going to say, you guys are the most advanced that we've seen. that's going to be a big sell because they're not going to be nitpicking on everything you do inside your facility as an inspector.
I don't know if you heard a couple weeks ago on one of the podcasts, I talked about 4 C's of asset information management: content, contextual, chronological, and connected. 2017, 2018, I was a younger man. I was into reading a lot more then. And I had read back in 2012, 11, somewhere around there, Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Well, having that book in my library, I was like, how can I come up with 7 habits for a digital twin? And so came up with some, and I'm gonna ask you about them today, and I'm gonna see what you think. No particular order.
Okay.
So one habit: must push data.
Absolutely. Must push data as in it must read and write.
I wanted that to be a separate habit. So I'd say must push. Now I'm gonna ask you, must pull data.
Yeah, I think both are necessary for digital twins.
Got to have. Now this next one is one I'm gonna see where your mind is. And I said static. It must be able to have static data that doesn't make any momentum.
Yes, because you need to know what is there.
That habit right there is when I've talked to a few friends, they're like, but it's a digital twin. And I'm like, you're right. It has to have some data that does not move,
Yeah.
that stays there.
Yeah.
This is the confusing part, though. This next habit is where I'm gonna see if we both agree. And I said it must avoid backward momentum.
Explain that further.
You must have procedures in place that allows your digital twin to be forward thinking and not looking in the rearview mirror. Because if you're looking in the rearview mirror, you're not gonna drive forward. So that's why I'm saying when I say must avoid backwards momentum, that's not just the digital twin, but in the program is you guys have to be able to not have fear of failure, not have fear of going forward, knowing that these things can happen because I'm forward thinking.
And it's a cultural thing. It's
Yes.
100% a cultural thing of it's okay to fail. We're going to keep doing this. Don't just revert back because
Yeah.
we failed once, because that is going to stop you every time.
Knowing our maturity level, knowing that I've corrected some of my standardization and my governance procedures, knowing that I've done some of these things allow me to be forward thinking,
Hmm.
which brings me to this next one. You must have flexibility and be adaptable.
Absolutely. Our world is changing rapidly. People used to make 5-year roadmaps for technology. If you're making anything more than 3 years out, then you are planning for no reason because we have
Yeah.
no idea what we'll see in 3 years.
Agree with that. Agree with that. What about number 6? It must be information rich.
Yeah, I think that goes back to my conversation about data and BIM. And BIM people are able to see the data tree and read it and go through it and understand. It needs to be information. It needs to be intuitive for somebody else to actually get the value out of it, not just data and then they have to make the connection. It has to be information for them to consume.
I think of everything we talked about, this one is going to be the one that big joker smile come out of you. Must be O&M friendly.
Absolutely. I think it's the biggest one. You literally can step in day one and start solving so many problems that have plagued facility management for years. And it's all just basically a digital workflow that's connected. And that's where you start becoming O&M friendly. I mean, there's so much you can do with it on the O&M side. I love it. I love those.
Well, I know me and Alex was giving you we were laughing on the podcast with him because I said, man, you get me in trouble with you being on here before Jacob. And he's like, Robert, yeah, man, this has to happen. But I said, strategically, I needed you on first because I wanted people to see a progressive contractor who wants to be essential to the owners that he's dealing with. I wanted that to start off, that I want people to see this, which leads me to now was I'm starting to bring you guys on with different topics that the more we dive, people can understand that if we don't educate contractors about what we want, we're never gonna get there.
I agree. And it's the same thing with designers too.
Yep.
They have to understand why they're doing certain things. If we can get asset IDs set up in design and have them track with asset IDs correctly, it creates such a better workflow. But it's a pain in the ass for engineers to already have an asset ID to start tracking. And if they understand why, then they really could actually start doing it correctly and the value is going to be there. But I agree. The Alex and what he's doing with McCarthy, I love it. And I love the idea of how can we better our company by delivering something to the owner that
Yep.
they then say, "Oh, that was fantastic."
Oh, is there anything that you would like to close out on about digital twin platforms, selection, dealing with owners, strategy, governance?
Something changed my career way back in when I was doing architecture, actually. And it was a piece of technology that was really advanced for its time, but it introduced me to facility management. And there was something really unique about facility management and the idea that there's this level of empathy that has to happen with facility managers because they have to have the end user in their building be content with their visit there. And if it's not, that's their fault. And it really turns this on of like human emotions, how to deal with them, how to understand what that person's doing. I mean, for you in an airport, those people are having a shit ass day probably because they are missing 3 flights. And if
Yep.
your facility is the reason that they have a worse day, then it comes back on you. And it was
Yep.
just really interesting to go from a design and construction side and start understanding all of this about facility management. Everybody that's out there that looks at technology, there's so many different applications of, career choices in technology. Don't be afraid to go explore it. There's so many opportunities. And really, if you find something that you're passionate about, hit it. Don't ignore it because there's definitely the ability to go and grow like what you're passionate about into a full career.
If you're not giving a kid AI or something gaming or robotics or something like that, man, them kids ain't majoring in that.
Mm-mm.
You know what I mean? So teaching a kid, hey man, you can do this and this with digital twins and make something else happen, dude. Them kids they're on that. But if they're not seeing this futuristic stuff, brother, they're not going into it.
And everything is about how you attract the next
Yep,
generation to your company. And for facility management, if you don't have technology in place,
yep,
they don't want to come work for you. I mean, it used to just saying that you need iPads. Now you need a lot more.
yep.
They want to see everything. And you get the right people that have those passions though that come into your company, man, they take off and start creating new workflows for you that you never thought of.
I know how to get in touch with you. You can't get away from me, but how can they get in touch with you?
So just find me on LinkedIn, Jacob Dalbora. And then at Via Technic, Jacob.Dalbora at viatechnic.com. Reach out. I'm open to conversations, talking about what I could support you with. But even if you guys have new ideas or just want to discuss digital twins, reach out. I'd love to.
Man, I'm sitting here and I'm like, these people don't know how smart you are, but when y'all call them and get in touch with them, you'll find out.
No, it's just passion.
Yep.
It really is. And it's always been something that I've been able to just dive into as deep as possible. So
I sure appreciate it, man. And we'll talk soon, my brother.
Robert, great conversation, man. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on the Digital Exchange. As we continue to bring clarity of the future AECO, make sure you're following the show so you never miss an episode. Next time, we will be joined by my buddy Johnny Fortune to discuss the owner enforcement of standards and why we should even have them. Until then, keep building smarter. I mean, I don't really like you, so it don't matter.
There it is. There it is. You have to start somewhere. And, you know, damn, I just lost the thought right there. Um,
I have never seen this happen.
I
And so
know. Um, what, what were, what was your last comment on that?